Lindsey Lomis.
I'm Lindsey Lomis.
Lindsey Lomis.
I'm Lindsey.
Lindsey Lomis.
My name's Lindsey Lomis. Okay, so you probably know my name by now. I'm Lindsey Lomis. I'm an 18-year-old singer-songwriter signed with Altadena and Warner Records. I just put out a new EP and I wanted to pay tribute to some women in the music business that have inspired me. I've done it in a series called Into You. It's been a crazy ride so far and I hope you stick around to follow my journey. This is episode 4, Ella Jane.
Don't look for your brothers, then just make it wait. Slow motion.
Ella!
Lindsey! Hi!
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm good.
Yeah, of course.
I'm so happy to have you on.
Yeah, happy to finally talk to you.
I know. I feel like I was looking through our DMs and it was like 3 years ago that we started talking and I was like,
actually
that is
insane.
We were like children.
I know.
It's wild. Well, thank you so much for doing this. You're killing it right now.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Sweet. Well, let's jump right in. So,
cool.
You're from New York. I've done my research. And so what was the community like there growing up? I mean, were there people around you that did music and it kind of got you into it, or was it completely yourself?
So I come from like the suburbs outside of New York. I'm like 30 minutes away from like Grand Central in Manhattan. So I come from a pretty small town, and there wasn't too much of like a music community just because it was just like, it's not a city. There are no venues. Like the only places we ever really went, the only places there ever were like live music was like local cafes and farmers markets, and so that's where I grew up like performing. But I think for me, like the encouragement or like the sort of music culture just came from like inside my house. Like I come from a pretty musical family.
Yeah, so your parents are into jazz, right? You're kind of influenced.
My dad, yeah.
That's amazing. So I guess, what kind of music did you listen to growing up? And I mean, I know a lot of your influences now, but did you kind of listen to your own stuff, or were you highly influenced by the jazz that your dad was playing?
I think it was like a little bit of both, because when I was younger, I, didn't fully appreciate it. I mean, my dad's like a jazz fanatic. He plays like just outside of his work, he just plays jazz piano, and he named me after Ella Fitzgerald. My brother's middle name is Coltrane.
What?
Yeah. I do not know how he got away with that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, so it was funny just because it was something I kind of like took for granted for a while. Like, we never really, jazz was always playing around the house.
Yeah.
We had a lot of like Billie Holiday and Charlie Parker and Ella Fitzgerald. But I like never really paid attention to it until I got older and like started writing my own music, and then I realized, like, I guess the influence that it's had on me. But it's more like, when you're little and your parents are listening to something, you enjoy something more if you discover it on your own, at least for me.
Totally.
So,
no, 100%.
Yeah. That was what was going on around the house, though.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's awesome. So, I guess I kind of want to ask, when did you start writing? When did you start getting into music? I mean, I'm sure you've been singing for a while, but when did all of this start?
Yeah. I started writing when I was, like, 11 or 12. For me, when I was younger, I wanted to be like a writer.
I love that.
So I used to like write all these stories. And it's funny because like I read and I wrote a lot more than I do now, like, in terms of real writing. I'm like,
I'm sure.
Technology has made me illiterate. But when I was like a little kid, I was really into writing. And so, of course, I was really into music. And when I was around 10 or 11, that was when I kind of realized I could, like, marry the two. And that's when I started writing songs. Because once I discovered that you can, like, sing and play at the same time, something like clicked in my head. And it started from there.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So your first song, I mean, not your first song you wrote, but one of the first songs you released was based on a book report, right? For school?
Yeah, that was my second single, yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, it's so funny because one of my first songs I ever wrote was based on a book report, and I had to do a project on it. Yeah, just like
what was the book?
So fun. It was the book was called If Only, and the song was called If Only, and it was in 6th grade, and I had to make an iMovie. And it was like such a fun experience though, and like really bonded with my teacher after it. No, but it was like, it's so funny. I was like, oh my god, we both had to write book reports, and I'm like, is this a musician thing? Like,
I mean, it was funny because I didn't even realize like until recently I was looking through like old photo booth stuff that like
Yeah.
No, I had opted to do that even when I was horrible. Like, I had opted to do that for so many different things. Like,
Totally.
I can't believe I literally in 7th grade stood up in front of the class with the ukulele and, like, completely earnestly sang a song about, like cells. I don't know. But so I guess I've been doing that for a while. I would just, like, do it instead of... Well, because I would have, rather written a book... rather written a song than, like, an essay. So,
That's exactly... Yeah. I loved it when the teachers gave that option. I would always choose to, like, do a song or something. But it's so funny. So, you also produce your own music, which is incredible. And I know you talk a lot about... I mean, the percentages of women that produce are really low. And so, it's so cool to see you doing it and writing your own stuff and producing it. And it's amazing. So, when did you start getting into that side of music, the production?
So first of all, I just want to mention that, like, I do not produce everything just myself, but every single thing that I've made started from a demo that I made, and that didn't really start happening until basically the start of the pandemic, or at least a little bit before, because, you have all this time, and it was like, well, I want to make it worthwhile, so I got really into, like, YouTube tutorials, and, just, I think a lot of, like, recreating stuff and trying to find, like, cheap alternatives and different apps and samples and, like, hacks but like, when I was younger, I was always messing around in GarageBand and stuff, so I think it helped, like, having been someone who spent a lot of time, like, playing around just on, like, GarageBand my whole life. That really helped. And I had always been, so what really got me into production was the first song that I ever made, The City, that I ever put out.
Amazing. I remember when you released that. Like, I remember seeing the artwork. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So that was, like, the first time I was ever really in a studio, and I just remembered, like, being there and helping with the production process, and not really knowing how to, like, I didn't really have the vernacular for it. I didn't know how to convey what I wanted, other than, like, well, I want this to sound like,
Yeah.
So that really got me into production, and it really made me want to learn more and figure out how to communicate more of what I wanted.
Totally.
But I really enjoy it.
No, it's amazing. I think it's so important to be, collaborative with the producer you're working with, because, I mean, I know I've had it both ways where, like, it hasn't been very collaborative, and I end up feeling so much less connected to the song. And so it's so important to be able to, like, say yes or no to something, or to be able to have the words to, communicate what you actually want and what you don't, too. So that's awesome. For sure. I really admire that you started like that. It's so cool. So I've also seen, switching over to TikTok, which is kind of where you got your following, and it is your platform. Like, you owned TikTok. It's incredible. And, this is something that I've seen you talking about, too, is some people don't believe that you do some of the production stuff. Like, people are just, like, so mad about it.
The worst. Right.
It's crazy. But, yeah, so you started TikTok, got super successful, and you've gained a massive following. I guess, how has that really affected your life and career? I mean, obviously, it's like what kickstarted your career in a way. Yeah. But how has it really affected you in the world you're living right now?
I mean, it's so weird to think about this, but I really owe, like, everything I'm doing and the majority of, like, my audience to TikTok. Yeah. Which I was so reluctant to, like, start on it, because I think, I didn't want to be, like, a TikTok artist, and that's honestly still something I'm a little afraid of almost happening, because I don't really want people to hear my music and associate me with TikTok, or, like, a sound.
You're already beyond that.
Right.
You're already beyond it.
I'm glad. But, I just think, sorry, hair stuck to my lip. I am really grateful to, I think what's really unique about TikTok is that the algorithm is so specific that it really helps you nail down, like, the perfect demographic, because, obviously you know this, but, like, the way it works is when you interact with something that you like, it will show you more of that. So I'm really getting people who listen to the type of music that I want to make, which is really exciting. It's been a really cool platform for discovery, which is cool.
No, it's so cool. They're automatically going to connect with you more than any other platform, just because, like, they're naturally interested in what you're doing. That's so cool. I think it's amazing. And I kind of wanted to ask, do you have any tips for others trying to get success on TikTok?
Yeah. I think the main thing that has just helped me a lot is, like, first of all, don't be afraid to show like actual aspects of your personality, and like I think
Yes.
what people really like is finding creative ways to promote your music. I've been, once in a while I'll throw out just like I'll play the song and be like, hey, this is my song, listen. But
Right.
I find what gets the most, reactions or genuine engagement is when I'm like, I'll see a TikTok trend that's going on and I'll try and find a way to put like a self-promotional spin on that. I also think
I love those
people,
videos you do.
Thank you. People really like, I think they love to watch an artist grow and kind of go through their success with them, especially if they know it's like, this is something I started organically and I started independent and it was all this sort of like organic growth. I think people love being there for that process, which is what TikTok's really special for. Like, if you can give people that insight into your life and your process, it's really valuable.
Totally, yeah, and I think that's kind of what makes you stand out from a TikTok artist, like you were saying, because I think a lot of people do it just to have, like, the fame aspect of it, and just to, they start music just to have that, and I think what you're doing is, like, switched, where you've been doing music, you've been working so hard, and you're using this as, like, a catalyst to, like, launch your career, and so I really think, like, it's so much beyond that, and it's so cool seeing people, like, connect with your music so much, and it's just amazing. It's so fun to watch. But yeah, so you have 4 songs out right now, 2 of which have over 3 million streams on Spotify, and I'm sure more built up on...
Insane.
Since I last checked, and more on Apple Music and everything. It's amazing. What was it like kind of hitting that milestone? That, like, I mean, I'm sure the first million was insane, but now 3 million, and it's insane. So what was it like hitting that?
I mean, for the first million, that was like the week of my high school graduation, which
was like,
so it was crazy. Like, so we had, we were gonna do like an online graduation. It ended up being basically like a drive-through. Like, they had us like drive up the school. Like, my whole family was sitting in the car, like with my grandpa and my brother, and we were like in our cap and gown. They like passed a diploma through the window. But they ended up doing, like, a socially distant graduation. So it was, like, on the football field. But I remember, like, that day I woke up and my parents had ordered me, like, balloons that's like 1 million. It was very fun.
So cute. I think
what's been crazy is, like, seeing these sort of milestone numbers get closer together and get bigger. Yeah. I think it's very surreal. Like, it's also, like, I don't know, because everything has happened over the course of the pandemic and everything's been online and it's been Zoom sessions and I haven't really gotten to, like, have a show or meet anyone.
Totally.
It's kept it from feeling real, so I think seeing those numbers is just kind of a crazy reminder that, like, no, this is happening and people are listening to my music. So
it's so
very
true.
Exciting.
No, it's so true, and I totally get that feeling of, like, everything not feeling real because it's so virtual right now that you haven't, like, seen, your audience in a crowd before you singing your lyrics. Like, you know what I mean? So it's so different, but it's so cool to see you doing it, and I just think it's amazing, and I know that you just recently signed with Fader label.
I did.
Amazing. How has that experience
been?
Thank
you. It's been crazy. I think I really kind of wandered into just great hands. They're just a really cool group of people, and I think what's very cool about Fader is that they have the resources of the Fader magazine and just a really cool, like, their own marketing brand. But it's like, the team itself is very small. They've got a very small roster of artists, and they all genuinely really care about the music, which is very exciting.
Totally.
So it's really fun. It's a cool new step.
Yeah, I'm sure having that intimacy is awesome, and I also saw that Claro's on that label, so I'm sure that's crazy to see, like, these big artists that you look up to, It's awesome. And now you're one of them. It's amazing. And I also, you're juggling so much right now because you're going viral on TikTok, hitting 3 million streams, you're signing with labels, but you're also in college. You're still in school, you're in your dorm room right now, we're joking with little prison cell.
Home sweet home.
Right. It's amazing. I mean, how are you balancing everything with school?
It's been difficult. I mean, I also, like, struggle a little bit with, like, ADD and auditory processing disorder, which I think on its own would make school kind of difficult. So you throw a whole music career in, it definitely is challenging. Yeah. But I think because the whole situation is so unique with the pandemic and, like, none of my classes are in person and there's not many in-person demands, it's made it a little easier for me to, have time to do schoolwork and do this. But I think next year's going to be a gap year, and I'm going to finally get to relax and write music and hopefully be done with homework, which is a sentence I never thought I'd be saying.
It's an amazing feeling.
Amazing. I'm very much looking forward to it. But it's been a weird time.
Yeah, no, I feel the same because I'm about to graduate high school virtually.
Oh, congrats!
Thank
you're doing
you.
a virtual graduation?
I'm so ready. I mean, hopefully it's an in-person graduation, but I mean, I've been doing online school for like 2 years, and so it just is like I've been...
that's crazy.
I know, I've just been pushing through it, and it's like just getting it done, but it's working, and luckily, like, I can still do music stuff while it's going on, but I'm so ready to, like, have no homework for the rest of my life.
I know. Amazing.
It's gonna be so good.
We'll be in the same boat.
Yes, oh my gosh. So you're moving back to New York, right? And you're gonna be living in the city? That's awesome. Are you so excited?
Oh my god, I'm so hyped.
Moving in with Laura, right?
With Laura, yeah. Do you know Laura?
I do, through Instagram.
Yeah, love her. She's so talented. Laura Elliott, if anyone's watching.
Laura Elliott, amazing.
But we connected through Instagram, and she was gonna move to LA, and I convinced her to stay.
I love it.
But yeah, we're gonna find an apartment in Brooklyn. I think it's gonna be fun living with a musician because, like, honestly, I really lucked out in getting a single room. If I had a roommate, they would have hated me because I'd be like,
it would be impossible.
Oh my god, it would be impossible. I'd be like either too embarrassed to like make TikToks or like I'd just be singing all the time. It's gonna be nice to be living with someone who like gets that experience. But I also think it's like a good step before, you know, if instead of like moving out to LA or something, like I still have home a half an hour train right away if I wanted, and but also get that independence. So that's really exciting.
No, it's amazing. That's kind of what I'm doing too. I'm staying in Nashville and hopefully going to LA like once a month. But I feel like just coming right out of everything, it's nice to still be close to home and still have like that support system and you know, people you love around you. But speaking of which, I know you're in your dorm room. You're saying like if you had a roommate, it would be impossible. So how is it? I mean, do you have classmates that like recognize you from TikTok, have seen your videos, like get your songs on their Spotify playlist, like
a little bit?
What is that like?
Oh my god, dude, it's embarrassing. Does that happen to you in high school? I mean, everyone.
I was gonna say, I mean, it's weird knowing that they're watching, but like being in a new college atmosphere, like people have seen your.
It's been actually, I mean, it's been kind of cool. It's been very strange. I think it's hard to know if like they know me because I think most people know me because like they know there's a girl on campus who's doing music stuff as opposed to knowing me from before. But
totally.
Like I was in a study room the other day. Oh no, what was crazier was instead of just being on school, I got like recognized on the train. This girl walks up to me. We were like on the T on the subway, heading out to Boston. This girl walks up to me and was like, "Are you Ella Jane Music?" And I was like,
"No
what?
way!"
Like, yeah. That was insane. It was also funny that she like referred to me as my entire like TikTok handle.
Your username.
But it's been really cool and crazy and very surreal. Yeah.
I feel like it's cool for you too. I feel like TikTok is almost the most like. I guess the most genuine platform. Like I feel like everyone's more comfortable to be like themselves and to put embarrassing stuff on there, and so I feel like people kind of already know your personality partly, which is like honestly probably kind of nice because you're not trying to like, you know, fake it.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be fake or anything. Right?
Yeah,
and I think
mean,
also
you're
like
so yourself.
Right. I was just going to say, you definitely understand this too, because, I mean, the reason that we met was through doing, like, covers on Instagram, but, like, it used to be, there's a lot of pressure, I think, to have this sort of, like, more calculated image, and, like, I remember I would spend, like, hours filming covers and making sure, like, everything looked perfect and captions and stuff. TikTok, I'll just post, like, whatever is happening.
I was just saying that. Yeah, I feel like I used to spend hours. I mean, even for Instagram, I still do spend hours, like, getting everything perfect. God. And for TikTok, I feel much more comfortable to just, like, all right, this is it. I'm not doing it one more time.
Because there's not the pressure of, like, I feel like it doesn't feel permanent, whereas Instagram, it's like, this is going on a profile that I know people will look at. It's, like, kind of a rarity that people will look at someone's profile and, like, judge the way, like, the feed looks or, like, look at every single video. So I think it's, like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it works, great, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. It gives you that freedom. It's so cool. But I feel like I already know the answer to this question because you're very passionate about it. But what are some of your musical influences?
I mean, we've got the wall here.
We got the whole wall showing us.
But off camera, we have Lorde, Frank Ocean, Harry Styles, Phoebe Bridgers, Maggie Rogers, and 1975 is a big one. Yeah. And in terms of, like, older stuff, I've been listening to a lot of, like, Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Wonder and Rolling Stones. Amy Winehouse is a big one.
Same.
Love of my life.
It's so funny because I've seen you talking about your musical influences a ton, like Taylor Swift's songwriting and Lorde.
Oh, Taylor Swift! How did I forget her?
I'm like, come on, she's your biggest one, right?
It's too obvious that I forgot, you know?
It's too obvious, yeah. No, but I've seen you talk about it before, and when I like listen to music before really knowing your influences, it's totally your own thing, and it's really cool like hearing your influences in your music, but it's still being so much like Ella Jane and in your own lane. And I think that's like a really hard thing to master, especially, I mean, I've understood the feeling of like having such strong musical influences, all you want to do is create the music they make.
Right.
But sometimes it can be hard to like get out of that bubble and really start like thinking for yourself.
Absolutely.
And so it's so cool seeing like how you blend sounds, but also it like all turns out to be completely you, which is amazing.
I appreciate that. Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I mean, I think the way I'll like cope with that is sometimes I'll have a night where I'll just get out my guitar and sing every Phoebe Bridgers song that exists. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course.
Right. But yeah, that's something I think something that's helped that too is like, even though everyone I just mentioned are like my biggest, you know, songwriting influences and like production and stuff like that, I still listen to like a pretty big variety of music, and I've been listening to a lot of like Haim and more like left of center indie stuff. So I think that having those other influences on my side with the more pop stuff really helps bring it together and make it more myself, I think.
I completely agree. Yeah, having a good mix of genres too, to be able to like, I mean, genres are like so gone now. It's really like whatever you want it to be.
No one even cares anymore. Exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing though. So I guess talking about your biggest influences, who's an artist or artists plural that you'd love to collaborate with? Like your dream collaborations. Oh my god.
Oh man, I always say, I mean, a big one for me would be Gracie Abrams. Just because I like, she's another person who I like. I remember as early as like 7th or 8th grade, I had been like following her on Instagram, and I think what was cool was like she was the only people I remember on Instagram who was like showing all this amazing original music, but it wasn't like curated or calculated. It was like low quality photo booth videos and pictures of like the food she's cooking and the book she's reading. And that to me she's always been a huge inspiration, and like getting to watch her grow has been exciting. So I think getting to like write with her and like even just talk with her would be insane.
Oh my gosh, I could totally hear just like a super depressing song that you guys sing together.
I need my sad songs.
She's a queen of sad songs. It's amazing.
I know. Oh, did you hear the new one?
Yes, the one with
good.
Benny.
Very sad. Blanco. Yep.
So good. Amazing. Well, so I guess talking about her and how she's so casual, and there are so many different levels, I guess, of like you said, pop influences or super indie, small, big artists, you know what I mean? How do you measure success for yourself? Do you have sort of like these goals that you're like, all right, if I reach this, I'm officially successful, or is it kind of more organic than that?
I think for me, the biggest way to almost like measure that, first of all, I think there's a difference between real success and commercial success. Yes. I don't think I would try and measure it commercially, because if I get to a point where I'm lucky enough that it is the things I do are commercially successful, I would never want to, I would want to make sure I'm prioritizing the music and really enjoying what I'm doing. That would be like peak success. But for me, especially coming from a time where all the music I've been putting out has been during the pandemic, and I haven't gotten to even go to shows, like let alone do my own, I think being at one of the venues that I grew up going to, getting to perform there would be insane. Like, I grew up taking my first, like, slice of independence was, like, my friends and I, that's a horrible phrase, but
I love it.
My friends and I would, like, take the train in and see people at, like, the Bowery Ballroom and Terminal 5 and even, like, Madison Square Garden. So being at one of those places where I got to look up to the musicians I loved and see them perform on those stages would be crazy.
Totally, yeah. I think that's the main thing too, like you were saying, is like prioritizing the music and over commercial success or any sort of image, which is so important. And I have those same goals, like being able to play the Ryman one day, or like these these certain venues that are just like it's like it's always where I've looked up to people. I would love to be that, but yeah, all in all, it's definitely just like happiness and sticking with it. And I think also a big thing is like to be able to do this for the rest of my life, to like not have to
absolutely
do anything to support me, like to just continue being able to be a musician full time and not have to worry about that.
That's the dream.
Yes. What's something that you would like every woman to know? I know this is like a crazy industry for young girls starting. What's some like piece of advice you'd love to give?
The one piece of advice, although there's many, but that I would give to like especially like a younger girl trying to get into music is first of all, when it comes to production, just don't, like, keep producing. Don't be shy. Don't shy away from that, even though it's, like,
Totally.
very intimidating in such a boys' club. I think it's such a strength to know, not only to know what you want in terms of the music you're making, but to be able to achieve that yourself. But also just, like, write the way you want. We need more female and, obviously, in many other ways, like, intersectional voices. We need, obviously, people of color and,
Totally,
you know, LGBTQ people, but, like, because music is so influential, and half of the population is not male, like, we're getting stories from such a disproportionate audience. Like, we're getting stories told by men. I think if you just write what you want and you're honest to your own life and that's out in the world, like, that's just the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, and so many people can relate to that because if they're so used to hearing something from, you know, a different perspective than their own, hearing someone like them singing something, it's like, oh my gosh, I totally understand this feeling. And it's, like, the best feeling to have that. And I've had that connection with other artists, too, being like, oh my gosh, I love this music not only because it's amazing, but because, like, I am going through this. Like,
Right.
so it's so cool to see that and to be able to connect on a whole other level. And I guess another thing is it's a really hard industry as a woman. I feel like a lot of us are taught to kind of always be in competition and, like, there's only one holy spot for, like, one girl. But it's so false, and it's not like that at all, and there's room for everybody. And I think I really admire that you are so supportive of other artists, and even, like, in your social media, you're always, like, shouting people out and, you know, just posting things that you like. And I think that's so awesome that you support artists like that, no matter how small or big they are. And I guess it can be really competitive, you know, in social media as well, which is, like, how both of us really got any sort of start. So we're starting from this place of, like, comparing our own careers to where we are. How do you kind of deal with that struggle or that pressure? I mean, I know it seems like you completely support everybody, you know, that's in the same realm as you. But do you ever feel envious of somebody else's career? Like, compare yourself to somebody else, and how do you deal with that if you do?
I think envy and jealousy is natural when you're trying to do the same thing, especially when there's, you know, seems like there's a much smaller audience of people going for what you're going for. Right. But I think the way that I just tend to deal with it is recognize that, like, as much as I might be jealous of someone's, like, career trajectory or even the music they're making or the people they're working with, like, I'm not trying to be them. Like, people will say things like, this already sounds like such, like, a weird humble brag, but for the sake of the point I'm making, like, people will say things like, oh, like, you're gonna be the next, like, Taylor Swift, you know what I mean? They'll be like the next blank, but it's like, well, I'm not trying to be that. Like, I want my own career trajectory and to make the music that I want to make, and I think just acknowledging your jealousy and putting it aside so you can just support people is the best thing you can do.
Totally, yeah. And I've gotten the Taylor Swift thing too growing up in Nashville, and, like, it's literally just because I play guitar and write songs. Right. You know, I sound nothing like her.
You're a girl who plays guitar and writes songs, right?
Yes. It's so funny. People just, like, quickly make those comparisons but don't realize, like, you know, how much you really think about that. But, well, this is kind of, like, my last little question here, but again, as young women entering this business, it can be really scary, and I think it's important that we use, like, our voices to, you know, better other people and better ourselves, and I think you've done that amazingly with social media and
Thank you so much.
Your presence there. What has sort of been your biggest struggle on your journey so far? I know it hasn't been a super long journey. I mean, it's longer than it seems because you've been doing this since you were a little kid.
Right.
But what has kind of been a struggle, and what inspires you to keep moving on past that?
I think a struggle for me, it has been trying to make sure that I'm not just, like, appeasing people for the sake of, like, avoiding an awkward conversation.
Right.
Especially, like, in a time where, you know, I mean, there are larger struggles that people could be facing, but, like, I think, you know, sometimes I'll have to fight the urge to make certain decisions just because I don't want to have any sort of, like, conflict or confrontation. But at the end of the day, like, this is music I wrote that I feel is totally true to myself, so I want the final product to be representative of that.
Totally. And
also, just above everything, trying to keep mental health in check, I think, let alone like doing what we do when we're writing about, like, our emotions all the time. It's already kind of a tricky thing to deal with and navigate. But because everything's happening, like, in such a shutdown, like, phase, I feel like I'm really just prone to burnout all the time. And I think giving myself a rest and acknowledging that, you know, it's normal and I just have to take care of myself sometimes has been very important. And luckily I have music to deal with that, which I feel very grateful
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah.
And I think that's something, obviously, we're so, like, vulnerable in our music that, like, we're already putting it all out there. So, like, it's a lot for our mental health to be like, okay, this is so personal to me, but I'm also going to share it with everybody I know and their mom. Like, it's a lot. So, like, it's nice to, like, step back and realize, okay, I'm doing this for me deep down. It, like, literally doesn't matter what anybody thinks. You don't have to think like that. It's, like, just for me. And so it's amazing to be able to have that perspective, like, from the outside, be able to step away. Totally. But, Ella, thank you so much for doing this. It's so funny.
Thanks so much for having me.
I was reading our DMs from, like, 3 years ago before this, and I remember one of the things you said was, like, I don't know if I'm going to go to school for music or whatever, because, man, it's, like, hard to make it in this industry. And I was like, look at you now, like, you're making it.
I got to go back and read these DMs. That is adorable. Oh my God.
I know, it's so cute. And, like, now
you're killing it, by the way. You're doing fantastic.
But it's just so cool to see that, like, 3 years later, obviously it feels like a long time for us, but, like, it's not a lot of time. And the fact that you've, like, never, you know, given up your dedication and your hard work, it really worked. And so there's a piece of advice for anybody watching, like, just keep going, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
and I think also, awesome. Like, just the last thing I was going to say was, I think that's what's been fun about, like, being, obviously there are, like, downfalls to being a child of the internet. It may not be, like, the best for our brains in the long term. But, like, what's been cool is, like, seeing all these people who were, like, doing what we were doing on Instagram a few years ago and doing covers, like, seeing us all trying to grow up and, like, pursue our own careers is really inspiring. So it's been very fun to, like, have everyone by my side, virtually, at least.
Yes, of course. Always here. You're amazing. I'm such a fan and a cheerleader, and I'm so glad I got to know you a bit more. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
You're the best. Okay. Bye, Ella.
Bye.
But